अच्छा, how will I get to know कि कब start करना है? Yeah. ठीक है. Okay.
Wait, we wait for more people to join in.
I guess we have Miri. Welcome, Miri.
We have Miri. She's here. Were you
Hi.
scared?
Hi,
Were you
Miri.
like, she's not going to show up?
Welcome, Miri.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm also good, ma'am. Please, I would like to meet you with our team.
Okay.
Here is Hemshri. She is also.
Hello, Miri.
And there's Anushka,
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
and then
We all
there's Inam Khan.
Hi, Khan. How are you? Oh, I love this background. Isn't it fun?
I'm great.
Yeah, it's lovely,
Yeah,
ma'am.
it's pretty. Let's celebrate today. Okay, you guys good? Do you need anything from me?
No, ma'am, we are very good, and thank you so much for joining us, taking out your time, and happy belated birthday to Alex again. Hope he.
Thank you. That was so kind of you. He was so loved. He felt so loved. He said he's really shy, by the way, so he won't go on social media. He actually doesn't have any social media, but he said that he felt very loved and appreciated all the well wishes. Thank you.
So, ma'am, we will be going live in 2 minutes. Okay,
Okay.
ma'am.
Let me present. Let me actually turn my Outlook off so that we don't get all these notifications. And then let me get my personal brand presentation out. Okay. So I'll just put it right on so we can. And do you want me to start talking or do you want to introduce?
Yeah.
Hemshri, I will be introducing you first, then we'll have your session, and then I'll be giving a thank you note followed by questions that are asked.
Great. And then, so I won't address any questions until the end. Is that right?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Thank you.
I'll be reading out the questions out now at the end of the session.
Great. And are you going to announce about the stories yourself as well? So you'll make that announcement?
If you want me to at the end, I could mention, but we're announcing the winner on the last day, right? That's 19th.
We are going live. Hemshri, be ready. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you. And I'll be monitoring the chat as well if you need to ping me for anything.
Okay. Okay.
Hello everyone. I hope you're doing well and safe in these hard times of the pandemic. My name is Himshri Maidan and I, along with my fellow teammates Mrityunjay Sharma, Arpita Srivastava, Inam Khan, Ananya Yadav and Anushka Mittal, welcome you all to today's MSP Women Who Empower session. The first speaker of our event is a very special one. She believes that legacy is one of the most important things to have in life, and her part of legacy is to ensure other people, especially women, don't feel alone in their career. She is the global head of internships at Microsoft and also a storyteller. And now, without further ado, I would like Miri to take over.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, and thank you for being here, for tuning in live. I am so excited to connect with you all the way from sunny Seattle. It typically is not sunny Seattle, but today it is. It's a beautiful day outside, and I put my background as balloons because I want us to celebrate ourselves today. I love the idea that women celebrate each other and celebrate themselves. This particular talk is extremely important to me as a woman of color, and as a woman of color in tech, because it is really important for us to understand the power of our brand and our voice in this industry, in this space. And sometimes we don't even think we have it. We don't even know how to get started with this journey of personal branding. But it's so important, and it's what gives us platform. Nobody in your life other than you will be able to put yourself and position yourself in the next best way to go to the next level or wherever you want to go. Not your mother, not your boss, not your connects, not your yearly review, not your professor. It will be you. It will be you. You are the CEO of your life. You are in charge of what happens next, and you are in charge of positioning yourself in a way that it's not who you know in the industry, it's who knows you and your capabilities and how you're going to position yourself. So let's get started with this branding journey. For me, I began this whole thing about 7 years ago, and at the time, I didn't know that there were some key elements to personal branding. I had no mentors. I didn't have anybody to tell me, hey, Miri, this is where you should go next, or how you should do it, or how you should position yourself. But through the journey, I understood a few key things of a brand, whether it's a corporate brand or a personal brand. A brand has a mission, it has attributes, it has a character or characters, it has a story, and it has search engine optimization. You use the digital channels today to be able to brand yourself the best way. Now we're going to break those down in a minute, but it's really important for me to share my own story of how this came to be in my life. Like I said, I had no mentors. I didn't have people telling me how to personally brand myself. That wasn't even a thing back then, 7 years ago. This is a picture of me when I first started at Microsoft, actually my profile picture that was taken the same week that I started back in 2012. And at that time, if you see me there, I was basically inconsequential. Nobody knew who I was. I had been in the industry for a little while. I was in my 30s, and I just didn't know who I was. Honestly, I had no purpose. I didn't know who I was, what I was doing, when I was doing it, and for whom. And I actually had also a mix of attributes that didn't really define me. That means that up until this moment, up until 2012, I had not decided who I was. I was sometimes kind, sometimes I was not. I was sometimes sarcastic, sometimes I was not. It didn't matter. I was just not intentional about who I was. I was not driving my brand or targeting my brand a certain way. I had no definition to my character. Again, having no purpose, having mixed attributes, no idea who I was, how I showed up to people. In fact, I had a lot of mixed responses when I asked people, how did I show up? I had no story. I then realized I did have a story, but I had no story. I didn't think I had a story. I didn't have a story that was phenomenal. I wasn't extraordinary. I was just a person living my life. So I didn't think people would be interested in my story. I just was living my life. So, but then I found out that's not true. I found out I did have a story. All of you have a story. And it doesn't have to be extraordinary the way that you thinking your life is already extraordinary, because you have lived something that nobody else has, and you've gained insights from that knowledge. You've gained insights from your own story and your journey, but no, we don't know it, right? Because you haven't branded yourself. If you Googled me at that time, you would probably just find my address or my parents' address. That's it. In fact, I did a Google at that time, and that's what I found. So this was me back in 2012 when I started this journey. And then I found out I had to have a mission. And so I created this statement. This was something that I created that many years ago, and it still rings true today. It's a simple way to really put in place and really write down what your purpose and your brand mission is. This began for me, my journey. At the time, I actually didn't know, again, who I was. What were my attributes? I didn't know what the world needed or where I would fit. I didn't know what I was going to do in order to leave a legacy. What would be that legacy? And for me, what was important was to break this down and really understand each of these lines better. So I did. I broke it down, and this is something that I would like for you to start thinking about, is something that you want, in what you want to do as a first step to branding yourself. At the time, I said I didn't know who I was and I had a mix of attributes. And that meant that I needed to get a baseline. So homework number one, something you can do today, over this weekend, over the next week, is go ahead and find people who you trust, who you know love you and want to see you win, especially women, please, because there's a lot of haters out there. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of people who don't want to see you win. So make sure you find people that care for you, that want to see your success, and ask them one question. Ask them, how do I show up? That's really an important thing to ask. The reason for that is because you don't know your baseline right now. You don't know what your brand is. And the problem is you have already built a brand. You just didn't know it. The way you brand yourself is what people say about you when you leave the room. You have already, unintentionally, maybe, created this brand for yourself. It exists, but you don't know what it is. And so at that time, I didn't know what my brand was. I want to find out where I was. What was my baseline? What was my starting point? How would I brand myself next? And so for me to get these attributes of who I was, I went and I asked a lot of people, and I made a mistake. I asked a lot of people that actually, didn't want to see me win. So I asked people that wanted to see me win and didn't want to see me win. And that meant that basically a lot of haters told me a lot of things, which is also good because I learned. I learned a couple things about myself at the time. I learned I showed up many things. I got a lot of answers, but I learned I showed up sarcastic was one of my brand attributes. The other one was feminist. I showed up feminist. And both attributes, I just should note that attributes are not good or bad. They just are, right? There are brands that are sarcastic, and that's their brand, and it works. There are brands that are feminist. That works. For me, however, as I started thinking about, wow, those are attributes. Do I want to show up like that? Why do I want to show up like that? I decided I didn't want to show up like that because I wanted to target my brand. And that's that's next step to you working out who you are. How do you show up? It's the first step. But the second one is for whom? Because you show up for many people. But if you don't target your audience, then you're not really showing up for anyone. You're shooting blanks. So for me, when I asked myself, hey, how do I show up? It was important for me to think about the world. The world needs what? Who is the world? And I realized in my own story that I didn't have a target audience. I looked at brands, corporate brands, personal brands. I looked at the Oprahs of the world, the Tony Robbins of the world, and I realized they have a target audience. They target specific people. And when they do, they brand themselves to allure, to appeal to those people. They position themselves and they use attributes that connect with those people. As women specifically, I want to call this out. We serve many areas of our lives. We are moms, we're sisters, we're friends, we are so many different things. And sometimes we allow these attributes that are part of who we are to define who we are. Sometimes we get stuck as moms. And we're not just moms. Sometimes we get stuck as daughters. Sometimes we get stuck as a worker or as a student. We're not just that. And furthermore, we can appeal to many different audiences. However, if you don't pick an audience, then you're not appealing to anyone, because the way you brand yourself can appeal and should appeal to a specific group. So the second thing to think about when you think about your attributes and how you show up is for whom? Who is the world? For me, at that moment when I joined Microsoft in 2012, I was really excited to join Microsoft. And then I had a hard time. I had a hard time for a year because I was being bullied by 4 women at Microsoft. And I was very scared, and I didn't know if it was me. I had imposter syndrome. I didn't know if it was the culture, probably a little bit of the culture. It was the Balmer days. It was just a tough time. And I felt all the time that I didn't belong there, that I shouldn't be there. and they made me feel like that too. And so I spent the first year just trying, crying. I wanted to appear tough. I wanted to appear like I belonged. I don't know if this has happened to you as a woman. It's so tough because we want to appear strong, and we are emotional, and we want to show up like we're okay. Sometimes we're not. And it's so tough. It's so tough, especially for women. I've lived it. And so I want to encourage you to let you know, being strong doesn't mean you don't have emotions. In fact, the world is now moving to a different place where I actually speak all over the world about brands becoming emotional of all things. It is okay to hone into your emotions. We have them. We're intuitive that way. We get to draw from these feelings, and they are important to acknowledge. So the world in this case is your audience. And for me, at that moment, after I was bullied for that long, I decided maybe I'm not the only one being bullied. There's probably other women out there who are being bullied. We're just not talking about it. So I targeted an audience. I targeted younger women in tech. It was important for me because as women, we're only 2% of the industry. That's insane. There's absolutely a huge gap that we have to fill. And if I left, which I wanted to do, I wanted to quit. If I left, then that gap is even smaller. It doesn't grow. It's even smaller. So I encourage you to think about this. I encourage you to think about why you chose tech, why that's important to you, and let you know it is not easy, and it will not be easy. I couldn't make it easy for other women, but I could talk about my stories, and I could target them with my story. And that's how my personal branding began. The world really became, for me, younger women in tech. I positioned myself to begin to talk to them. I began to dress myself that I could actually allure them and be open to them, so I could be relatable to them. I'm 42. Clearly, I had to not dress. I don't know what a 42-year-old dresses like. I don't know, but I just had to appeal to that target audience. If I was talking to IT pros, if I was talking to CEOs or C-suite level, clearly I would dress different. Clearly, I would speak a little bit different, and that doesn't mean I am a different person. It doesn't mean I'm not being authentic. It means that I'm drawing from attributes that already exist inside of me to be able to highlight the best of them so I can target my audience. I'll explain a little bit of what that means. This is actually done through storytelling, so I hope you're ready to tell some stories. Your story really began when you were born, right? That's your story. We all have a story. And so Miri, how did you discover your purpose? How did you discover this and that? I'll explain. If you have a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper or a notepad or whatever, just like this, just grab that piece of paper, grab a pen, and put right on top of that paper a dot at the beginning. That actually signifies the day you were born. Okay, the day you were born. That's when your story began. That's it. You didn't choose where to be born. You didn't choose in whose family. You didn't choose in what birth order. You didn't choose your geography. You didn't choose the year. You just were born and you appeared one day and there you are. There is me in 1978. This is the exercise. I was born in 1978 in Caracas, Venezuela, to a family of 5. I was actually the middle child. So at the time I was the second that came in right after my sister was born just a year before that. And this began my journey in life, right? I began to actually live my life, and there were points in my life, highs and lows. Notice I put my little sister as the low point, just because then I became a middle sister, and that's no longer a good thing, right? I moved to the city, then I moved to the US, just a bunch of different kind of data points that I'm pointing out throughout my life, and that you should do the same in your piece of paper from the day you were born all the way to the present. Okay, these are memories, these are moments, these are things that you remember, and you remember them. Why? Because your brain has filed them in a place where it says, hey, important memories. This is encoded memories. You need to remember this. Now, you probably didn't think about that right now. You didn't think about why that's an encoded memory. You didn't think about why that's an important moment in your life, perhaps even a transformative moment. But by putting it on paper, you're going to begin to draw your life origin story, and that is going to start giving you patterns, a lot of patterns. It's going to remind you how you were shaped the way that you are today, who influenced who you are today, what influenced who you are today. It's going to start giving you all these data points of your life origin story. That's it. That's your origin story, and then we're going to take that and we're going to use it with storytelling techniques to build your brand. Here's how we're going to do that. First, we need to understand what is storytelling, right? For me, when I actually became a storyteller at Microsoft, that is a title. We have around actually 400 storytellers here in HQ, 4,000 worldwide. So that is a title, different disciplines and functions at Microsoft. I came into the core services engineering function to do storytelling for data and AI. That was my function area. And I didn't know how to do it. I was absolutely lost. So I went and asked people that were in the industry, that were outside the industry, that call themselves storytellers in different aspects of storytelling, video storytelling, producing, writers, all kinds of storytellers, art and theater. And I asked them, what is not storytelling? And so they gave me this different answers, and I compiled them here as you see. Storytelling is not data. And that's really important for us as women to understand. Why? Because we focus a lot on data. We focus a lot on what we think we are. I am a woman. I am a mom. I am a sister. I am a worker. I am an engineer. No, those are things you do. That's not who you are. Who you are is a complete amalgamation of your story. That's who you are. So it's important for us to get away from the idea that data tells who we are. It doesn't. It will never tell who we are. The story tells who we are. That's really important for us to understand the story. It's not marketing. It's not exploitation, meaning that you can exploit with your story. Your story could really be very powerful, especially being a woman of color. There's a lot we go through, and we don't tell those stories. So it can exploit people when we begin to tell those stories. It's definitely not going on Instagram, calling ourselves a storyteller if we put stories on Instagram. So if it's not that, then what is it? For us, it was really important to understand for me that I had gone to find definitions all over. I didn't really find a good one online or elsewhere about storytelling. So I created my own. Here it is. It's the emotional transfer of all that stuff, of the data, of that information. And I love that because as women, we are emotional. So guess what? As a woman, you probably already do this naturally. You don't have to think about it too much. It's the emotional transfer of that information. And it's done through a character, a plot, and conclusion. This is where your story begins to take shape. Up until now, you did your origin story, and there's characters in that story. There's mom, dad, probably. There's a sister, brother. There's some, friends that have been part of your story. There's people who have influenced your story. Who are they? Who are they? Who are you in that story? Who are you targeting in the story? That's where the plot comes in. That's when you begin to build this plot. Up until now, you didn't have that. Now you get to use that very material, the very raw material of data, and turn it into something intentional for the future. And then you conclude with your legacy. I was introduced and said that my legacy is something that I really preach about. It is extremely important because here's the thing. If you have a brand and you have a target, but you don't know why you're doing this, it will come off unauthentic. And even further than that, it won't land because there's no legacy. There's no why. For me, when I decided to target younger women in tech early in career, my why was because I had been bullied for a whole year. And I was like, why are we allowing this? Why are we not talking about this? Now, I couldn't do anything to the bullies. There were still going to be bullies. I can't remove all the bullies in the world, but I can expose. And I can make sure that other women knew a couple things. Number one, that if I was staying there and I survived, they could survive too. And that we can move the needle together. And number two, my legacy would then be when I drop off, if I decide to pivot careers, if I decide to leave tech, if I pass, if I die, I know that those women who stayed probably have the same story, and they will tell those stories, and they will talk to other women who tell those stories, and their daughters and their daughters and their daughters, and that contributes to the gap. So my purpose is beyond myself. My story was not about me. What happened to me was not about me. It was about other women. It was about other people who were probably experiencing the same thing, and my story represented them. So that is my legacy. That is the conclusion to my story. But where do we begin? Well, for me, I had to use specifically at work, and I want to share the same techniques. I began with design thinking. I was taking this course at the time in my master class, my master's degree, and I decided I could use this model of design thinking, which you may be very familiar with, to brand myself. And then, to actually do storytelling as well. So I used this for my stories. I began to think, I was like, wow, empathy is a thing. Empathy, is where you begin. I had no idea that's where it began. I didn't know what it meant either. So I had to really dig to understand what is empathy. And I didn't find a lot of good definitions online. So I went and I found one that I really liked best. It's this one here. It says that empathy is the experience of understanding another person's thoughts, thought process, lived experience, lived life, pains, emotions, journey. It's the experience. In other words, it's not me putting myself in someone's shoes. Someone else's shoes is me walking a whole lot in those shoes until I get it. It's me putting myself completely, inevitably immersing myself in this person's experience so that I too get to experience that. And that was a challenge for me because I realized I wasn't empathetic. In fact, I realized that was not one of my attributes. It showed up as a number 33 out of 35 attributes when I took a personality test. That's crazy. I failed the test on empathy. But then I learned that empathy can actually be learned. And we're learning now that there's actually 3 levels of empathy that we can employ. As women, we are typically nurturers and we are typically empathetic. We typically do look at other humans. We typically feel other humans' emotions. If you're like me, maybe not so much, but typically we are. In general, we are. What I didn't know is, again, you can actually practice empathy. And there is levels of that you can practice. This is the first level, cognitive empathy. It really talks about the idea that we are human. And as we're human, that means they are human. You out there who's watching right now, I don't know you. I've never probably seen you in my life, but I love technology, number one, for allowing me to speak to you at this moment. I also love that I get to envision you as a human. And for that reason, I can empathetically think of you as a person who is probably going through something. Right now, COVID-19 is making us all scared, anxious. We're feeling uncertain. Probably, maybe you've had the illness. I don't know. But for that reason alone, I get to step back, and instead of being Miri from Microsoft delivering a speech, it's more of me talking human to you, to inspire you, to help you brand yourself as a person and find yourself in the world. That is cognitive empathy, is me reminding myself, hey, those people I'm talking to, they're human, no matter where they came from, no matter what they look like, no matter their color of skin, no matter their geography. That's important. The second one, and that actually, so again, when you practice this, ask yourself today, how's someone with COVID feeling right now? Physically and emotionally. That's a good practice. Reminding ourselves and zooming out of our own tunnel vision of how this is affecting me and going, whoa, this is affecting more people, not just me. And it affects them this much and maybe possibly to the death, right? There's people dying right now. Emotional empathy. It talks about us being human. So not only are they human, those people listening to me, watching me right now, they're human. We're human. I'm human. And for that reason, I allow myself a certain degree of vulnerability to think about my own emotions, to think about my own actions. This idea that we are one, and that what one person does at an individual level, it does affect other people. We're not islands. We don't have this meism approach. When I do something, it affects someone else. And so if I do it positively, it will affect positively. If I do it negatively, it will affect negatively. Perhaps just my initial circle, maybe an extended circle, or maybe beyond that. And I think COVID-19 has shown us this 100%, the actions of one person, how interconnected we are, right? So that's emotional empathy. Then we go to compassionate empathy. I am human. This is where storytelling serves you in your personal brand. Brand yourself as a human first. Brand yourself as a human. Do not define yourself by the things that you do, by being a mom, by being a sister. We're all those things. Do not define yourself by your career. That's one of the things that you do. And by the way, use that platform. Use the company you want to work for to build your brand, right? Don't just be that. Build your brand on that. Don't marry a company. Flirt with the company. Date the company. Use the platform so that you can build your brand. That's important. Microsoft actually talks a lot about that. Satya, our CEO, he says, use Microsoft as a platform to achieve more, to do what you want, to bring your passions. That's really cool. I've been able to do that myself, right? I've been able to brand myself in a way that I've learned all the things that I've learned at Microsoft. I talk about it. In fact, my book is a lot about the learnings that I've had at Microsoft. So Don't just, again, we women typically tend to attach ourselves to one idea. We think culturally we have to be a certain thing at a certain time, at a certain age. Why? You don't. You have the power. It's your life. You get to decide. You are the CEO of your life. You get to decide what you want to do. I relate a lot with women from India. I have a lot of friends that are women from India. And culturally, I know that our cultures are kind of similar. I'm Latina, a very male dominated culture, also a very hierarchical culture. And that's the way we've been brought up. But I had to divorce that for a little while for myself to be able to find myself. I had to remove the ideals that I was brought up with, not to go against them, but to understand how that fit with me and what I wanted to do, because this was my life. And I had to draw from the best parts of my culture, my religion, my beliefs, and really bring up this my own core set of values that I was going to go to do life with, that I was going to go do business with, and then decide, can society really tell me when I should be having a baby, or when I should get married, or when I should become a VP, or when I should become a CEO? And if I don't do all those things, that means I'm not successful? No. Define your own success. You're human. You're not a robot. You're not somebody else's idea or somebody else's life. This is yours. This is your life. Be compassionate with yourself. Compassion and empathy is about you recognizing your own emotions. Think about what that is. Take time to understand your own frustrations, your own sadness, your own happiness. Learn them. Learn them. One thing that women do have is intuition. I cannot tell you how many times in my career I've made an intuitive choice versus what was logical or what society thought or what people wanted. I made an intuitive choice and it was the best way. More often than not, I would dare say always. So listen to yourself. If you tune into your own emotions, you become intuitive. You're talking to yourself. You're feeling your emotions and being driven by that. And so you think about designing your story, you empathize by finding a universal truth. That's where I want to go with this. You are thinking now about your journey. You're thinking now about your audience. Who do you target and why? You're thinking now about your legacy, right? For your brand. Up until now, you probably didn't have those elements. You didn't know what that looked like. Well, here we begin designing the story. Step one is to empathize. We talked a little bit about what empathy looks like and how you can practice empathy. Finding universal truth is really finding a way that you can place those attributes for your brand with intention. How do you make people feel when you show up, right? You ask people, hey, how do I show up? I ask you to go ahead, I dare you to do this homework. Take, anonymous surveys and say, hey, how do I show up? I took this course on personal branding and they asked me to get my baseline. Ask people, how do I show up? Open-ended question. Don't give any more instructions. You're going to get a lot of answers from that. And then you're going to take those answers and evaluate those patterns, right? Those are data points. Evaluate those patterns and see what pops up. I told you, for me, sarcastic came up, also feminist came up. And for me, I was like, wow, if I use those two, it won't spark the feelings that I want to with the women that I want to reach, right? Sarcasm back then, or even now, shows up authoritative to a cohort that is early in career. Hey, she's showing up sarcastic. She sounds like an authority. I can't relate to that. I don't know it's intimidating to me. Feminist was another attribute that came up. Again, not a wrong one. I consider myself a feminist. I was raised in the slums. I had to fend for myself. I was a hacker. I am a hacker. And so for me, that was always, an attribute that I defined with strength, with being strong. And that was okay. I want to be a strong woman. I want to show up strong. However, I learned that for this cohort, for younger women in tech, that showed up also it could show up extremist. It could show up men bashing. It could show up against the ideas of culture, of communication, of collaboration. It's like, I'm all over here by myself, doing my own thing, independent. I don't need a man to open my door. I'm like, like that idea. And so for me, I was just like, I don't know if that's going to show up well. So what I did was I toned those down. And I intentionally said, you know what, I'm going to just kind of nix my sarcasm a little bit. I'm going to use kinder words. I want to be kind. I want to be known as a person who's kind. And I also want to be known not as feminist, but as feminine, that I have feminine traits. And so it's derivative, right? The idea around feminism is good. It's at the core, it's a great notion of equality, but I didn't want to show up extremist, so I toned it down a little bit. So when you think about your brand, ask yourself a question: what feeling is your story, your brand, going to spark with your audience? When you show up clearly from your baseline, you're going to learn how you show up, how you made them feel. How do you mold those attributes that show up as patterns and say, hey, this one showed up, I show up really shy. Okay, shy is not a good or bad thing, it just is. But if you're gonna go to government or talk to government officials and that's your target, probably shy won't help you. So you're gonna have to work on that one, right? So again, find those data points and begin to work on them, to shape them, to evolve them to where you want to be. Next, you understand your story mission. Back to your audience, you define that audience, your character, your plot, and your conclusion. And you ask me, hey, Mira, it's really hard. I don't know who my audience is. Well, your stories, that origin story, can give you some pinpointers on that audience. You've gone through stuff. You probably have some good stories to tell. And who will listen to those stories is the question. Why would they listen to the stories? Why would that inspire someone? Or why would that teach someone something? Your stories are meant to educate, bring insights of things that nobody else, that I can't Google. I can't Google your story, right? Insights of your learnings, insights of your failures. How do those failures, how do those moments, how do those things that shaped you throughout your life, how do they give you that mission, the audience? And who are you in that character? For me, when I defined my own story, my character became actually the Robin to the Batman. The Robin was me. I was a superhero-ish in my story, but I wasn't the hero of my story. It wasn't about me. It became about those women. And so they became the Batmans. I was just a psychic. I was helping them out. I was going to enable them and be a voice for them. And that's who I became in my story. So this is how I fill those in, right? I'm feminine and kind because my girls, not the world anymore. I probably won't reach 8 billion people, but maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 10. And now I'm reaching India. My girls need reassurance that they belong. Against all odds, we showed up in tech and here we are. And they need to be reassured that they need to be here, that they belong here. Tell imposter syndrome to shut up, right? In order to close that equality gap. See how that works? I began to brand myself this way. Was I that? No. This was just my mission statement. This is where I was just going to get started. After I'd done my homework, after I had understand my baseline, after I had gone through my why, reviewed my timelines, and I was like, okay, why do I target? You know what? I'm just going to go target these people. I feel responsible to talk about these things. And so I did. And the rest is history, right? So this is what it looks like. And then you begin to actually give your story a mission, not your brand. This is my brand mission. Then you give your story a mission. Your brand story continues. After you go out, you're like, okay, great. What am I going to do? What stories am I going to tell? Right? For example, I found out that my girls love stories of relationships. They love to hear stories of my breakups and my drama with my friends. And so I had to go tell those stories to be able to be relatable. If I talk only about communications hacks or, brand storytelling, corporate storytelling, they're not going to connect with me. That's not what they're about, right? They're navigating a world where I was a couple of years ago, 20 years ago, to be exact, right? And so I can talk about those things and say, hey, if you broke up with your boyfriend, it's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. It feels like the end of the world, but I'm here. I survived. It's all right, right? So think about those things. So your story is dedicated to that audience. For me, it was young women in tech. So it can help them do what? As I said here, reassurance. Help them feel like they belong and make them feel, that's the feeling. That's where it comes in. Empowered, inspired, educated, right? It makes them feel, that's what it is. Your brand makes people feel something. And the beautiful thing about this is that people don't remember anything else but how you made them feel. They won't remember anything. You won't remember what I'm wearing. You probably remember 20% of this whole talk. What you will remember is how I made you feel with this talk. That's what branding is. So then what do you do with that? You design, you begin to ideate. You use brainstorming tools. Google brainstorming tools. You will have a whole lot to play with. I actually, I recommend this one's called Scamper. There's many others. In fact, there's a storyboarding tool, which is really cool. Google it. And truly, what you can do is use that very timeline that you used at the beginning with your data points of your story and storyboard your story in 6 panels. 6 panels. So basically, tell your story since you were born until present time in 6 panels only, no words. No words. You can use paintings, you can use, you can use drawing, but no words. When you do this exercise, when you use a different type of storytelling technique, you're going to find other things because your brain begins to activate neural path and go, oh, that memory, I remember it differently. Let me find more details around that memory because now I have to remember, the place I was at. I have to draw a tree or whatever it is. So you're going to actually expand on those ideas. Scamper helps you also bring layers to your story. Hey, what if you replace the character? What if you don't mention, your parents in the story anymore? What if you mention an uncle instead? What does that do to your story? What if you modify the plot? What if I no longer talk about women bullying me, but now I talk about something else? So you begin to think about different layers of how you can present the story. Ideation is this phase, brainstorming, think of different ways, think of different avenues. And then, because you've defined your audience, you actually begin to design the story with prototyping techniques. This, what you see here, is 8 basic techniques of storytelling. There's different ways to tell a story. This is 8 basic. There's way many more. And if they don't exist, guess what? You get to build it yourself. You design your own story. You don't have to be conforming. Somebody created this. You can create your own way to tell a story, right? So just a few examples. On the top there's a drama. It's called a mountain. It's a storytelling technique. It's like super dramatic. Latinas like me, we use that a lot. It's like drama, 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 peak, slump. I mean, we just like drama in our lives, right? The one right underneath it is called the petals structure. Is you telling different stories that are connected by one theme, right? So you tell a story first of when you were born, you tell a story of when you got your first job, you tell a story of when you got into the school of your choice, and all of them have the same thing, the theme of your story, like the centerpiece of the petal, that centerpiece of that flower is really the main story. They're all connected to this one main theme. You have, for example, that guy walking into the door. That's called the false start story, where you begin with something and then you're like, oh, actually, that's not the beginning of my story. So you go and you say, I was in Miami. Wait a minute, hold on. I was actually in Venezuela first. And so people go, oh wait, so that change in brain pattern, people go, oh, she's going something else. And so you actually kind of break up the storytelling in a way that continues to capture your audience. The hero's journey, very popular way of telling your own transformational story, is down at the bottom, is that little lion circle, Lion King story idea, where you tell a story of personal transformation, things you've learned in life. A lot of people use this. I use it all the time. You can combine ways to tell a story. You can combine methods, channels. Should I go on LinkedIn to talk to these people? Yeah, you should. Should I go to TikTok? I don't know. Are they on TikTok? Go where your audience is. Start telling the stories to where they are. Don't ask people to come to hear you. You go out to tell them who you are. You present yourself. You craft your stories. You test them as well. That's the last step, is you thinking about how you're going to present your stories. Now, I get a lot of questions around my content. I will go on LinkedIn. This is an example. And I'll put my dog there, right? And people at first were like, hey, Miri, this is not Facebook. And I was like, well, thanks for Captain Obvious for letting me know this is not Facebook. I know. But I also know I targeted my audience. And so I've built some equity with my brand. And my equity is I learned that the content that I was focusing on was focused for my audience. My girls love dogs. My girls love to be healthy. My girls want to learn more. My girls love to see pictures of dogs. So I'm not targeting any more people than my audience. Now, if I get an extended audience, which I have happened to gain now, that's wonderful. That's great. But that's not my intention. I didn't intend to be an influencer or a nano influencer or whatever. That's not my intention. My intention is I want to represent some voices in tech, women in tech. And so I did. That was what set me up. That was what I wanted to do. And I gathered more audiences, which is nice. Not my intention. If I lose them tomorrow, I'm good. If I know that I'm targeting one person in my circle, in my target audience, and it inspired them, I'm good for the day. I'm actually better than if I reached 500,000 people and that nobody cares, because it's not my audience, right? So your content, you say, hey, Miri, what will my content be? Your content should be, again, 3 things. It should be educational, meaning insightful. If I can't Google it, that's educational. I learned something new. What can you offer me? Instead of saying, hey, I read this great article, here it is. You can say, hey, I read this great article. Here's what I got from it. Here's how I consumed that content. Here's what I learned from it. So now you're not giving me the article. You're telling me what you learned from the article. That's insightful, right? Inspirational. We love to be inspired. We love to be inspired. I am sure, I'm nobody. I just have a dog. It inspired people, right? That's it. It's not huge. It's not big. I'm not an astronaut. I wish I was, but I'm not. So I can't inspire them on that level. I can inspire them on mine. Here's a picture of my dog, right? Different channels, different people. I learned that I have different audiences through the different channels. So on LinkedIn, I have a lot of my audience, my target audience. On Twitter, not so much. So you see a little bit more of my sarcasm that comes out on Twitter, because I get to be a little bit more kind of, I get to not have to play a little bit more of my sarcasm. I just allow myself to be a little bit more sarcastic because it's part of who I am. It's not inauthentic. It's just who I am, right? And then on Instagram, oh man, Instagram, all of my audience is there, right? So I actually had to go to Instagram and create an account. I didn't even have one, but because my audience was there, I have to go there. So prototype your stories and find out where your audience is. I found out to IT pros, if that's your audience, they love Medium. They love how-to blogs. Love how-to blogs. When I started working in that field, I learned that. So clearly, it's important that you know what channel to go to, what kind of content it is. Always educational. People want to learn. Inspirational. People want to be inspired. And personal. They want to see all of who you are. They want to see the human you. If you show up as a student all day long, you're a student. I know. What else? Right? You talk about branding to get the job at different places, Google, Microsoft, Amazon. Miri, how do I stand out? With the things that are yours. Your story makes you stand out. That's how you stand out. Your resume is one data point of who you are. One. The rest is you. And yes, we are looking at your social channels. Yes, we are looking at who you are. Your digital presence is today's resume. It is. So make sure you're intentional to use these tools that exist today. I didn't have them back then, to actually brand yourself in the best way possible, showing up in all the places and all the things of who you are, right? And now I Google myself, and there I am. I have a Google panel all of a sudden, right? I have a Google panel. That's because people got curious. People started Googling me, and then they put up a Google panel. Oh, well, Miri is this, Miri is that, and I'm all these things. Again, I'm a mom, I'm a Christian, I'm a friend, I'm a wife, I'm a worker. I work for Microsoft. I work in other things. I have my consulting company. I do so many things. I'm not just one thing. I'm not just one thing, right? And so that's how you brand yourself. You test it. Miri, I decided I'm going to target, again, older women. Okay, great. Where? Is your brand going to be global? Is your brand going to be global? Hey, Miri, I want to help my local community. Okay, so it's local. It's not global. So maybe you don't need all the digital channels. Maybe you need WhatsApp because that's what they use there, or whatever other means of communication. You test your channels, you test your content, you test and you ask yourself, hey, did my brand evoke those emotions that I wanted? And you'll know that because guess what? When the content is emotional, people will respond immediately. Immediately. It'll be an immediate response to your content. I've gotten completely flatlined on some content. I'm like, oh, that didn't work. Tested it, failed fast, go back, ID it again, prototype again, test it again until it works. And when it works, oh, it works. Change something, test it again. It's a fail fast approach. Each failure in how you're delivering your brand and your story, each piece of that will tell you what not to do and then basically what you need to do next. Now, this is a long haul idea. This is not you put something in tomorrow immediately, everybody's going to like it. No, you're going to build your equity. You're going to build your things. But here's what's the beautiful thing about emotional content with your brand is that when you share it, when you finally put yourself out there, it's scary, I know. When you finally put your stuff out there and somebody says, wow, I read the story, look at this, that's what we do. As humans, we like to connect with other people and it's relatable. And so we share the stories. That's what makes things go viral, by the way. It's relatable content, right? So stay on it, share more, always with the same thing. Ask yourself, does this evoke what I'm trying to make people feel? Does my content, does my tweet, does my Instagram, does the way I text, do they evoke that? And it should all be aligned. People should not be surprised when they meet me in person because I should be the same person to everyone. I am myself. I am who I am, right? And I should evoke the same feelings all the time. So remember, your story is your differentiator. I cannot stress that enough. Miri, how do I put that on a resume? You put it on the resume. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of bullet points. Yeah, you're going to, say I'm a team worker and I'm all this, but you can also say, I'm a life hacker. Well, what does that mean? Well, I had to hack my whole life, right, to make it here. I am a servant leader. What does that mean? I love to serve people. I lead with my heart, right? So you can use words, you can use stories, you can use those patterns that you're finding to help you build this resume this content, your profile. Your profile doesn't have to look like your resume, by the way. You have now two different real estates, a resume and now your LinkedIn profile. And by the way, we cannot share any more resumes with each other because of privacy policies. So we're actually looking at LinkedIn profiles. That is the biggest thing in terms of social media presence and branding. So polish it. You have a lot more real estate there and you can do a lot more. You can feature content. You can do a whole lot. So get creative with that and build a story on your LinkedIn profile. Stories are for your audience, not to your audience, meaning you're going to package them up, you're going to build them, you're going to be intentional about the plot, the conclusion, you're going to be intentional about the characters. You're going to take time to design and design and design. Not one time makes best. You're going to storyboard, you're going to brainstorm, you're going to scamper, you're going to do a 6-hat approach, you're going to do a whole lot of different things to the story to keep evolving, to keep it fresh. You keep evolving yourself. Your life just started, right? So you're going to have a lot of different material to work with and data points. Ideate, and do it with heart. It's your story. It's nobody else's. Do it with the heart, the passion. That is what sets your soul on fire, is who you are and what you're going to become in the world. You decide that. You get to do that. Nobody else. So do it with your heart. And you're going to get a lot more responses than you expected. And at the very least, you're going to learn more about yourself and who you are so that you can become an authentic person to you and like yourself. And then people will begin to like you. I used to do a webinar called Learn, Like, Love. Learn yourself first. Like yourself. That's a big one. And then love yourself and others. You can't pretend to go serve the world if you're not sure of who you are first or why you're doing the things that you do. And so brand yourself. To be able to brand yourself, you got to learn who you are, your mission, your purpose, why you want to do this. So I highly recommend you spend time introspectively thinking about who you are, retrospectively thinking about who you've been up until this point, and then think about the next steps for your life. That's all I got for you. I know we have a lot of questions, so I'm going to stop here and answer your questions.
Hi everyone. Anushka Mittal from MSP WWE. First of all, thank you so much, Miri, for spending some of your very valuable time with us. Thank you for such a wonderful session that will definitely help us grow. I'm definite that after this session, we will think hard about building a brand and putting ourselves out there. I like to thank you especially for the interest that you took in providing mentorship to our participants. Thank you so much, Miri.
Thank you.
It's the audience like the one we have today that makes sessions like these awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I would like also people who sent us their stories know that Miri is personally going through them. And we will know about the person getting a one-on-one mentorship with her on the last session on the 19th from Donna. Thank you, everyone. Now let's go and address a few questions that we've got. First, we have Divya Maheshwari, who wants to ask, Miri, I hope you can hear me.
I can, yeah.
Okay. She asked how to keep yourself motivated towards our work and while dealing with those who are constantly bullying us.
Yeah, that's a great question. So motivation is something that it's derivative of energy. So we have to first understand that we each individually have different levels of energy. So I'm highly energetic myself. So I'm personally motivated all the time because I'm highly energetic, but there's a lot of people who are not. So it takes a little bit more of them to keep motivated, to keep inspired. Motivation and inspiration both are things that are short-lived, by the way. They kind of take us to a journey and go like, okay, I'm motivated to start a new job. I'm motivated to start a new exercise routine. And then after we've been doing it for a while, then we kind of get bored or we drop it. And so the motivation falls because we didn't finish the job. So it is something that we have to look at objectively on how to use this motivation or how to keep motivated. So learn your energy levels. That's really important. Learn when you drop off. You know if you're a morning person because you love mornings. You know if you're not because you don't. You know where your slump happens during the day, where you need that little pick me up maybe at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You know if you're a night owl, right? Because you could spend, you never go to sleep before midnight. So you know your own life kind of gives you your patterns. And through that, you can understand your energy levels. So with that, the hack is when you know and anticipate, okay, typically at 2 o'clock, I need to pick me up. What can I do to motivate myself? For me, I do actually slump around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I know this. So I'll do something in the afternoon. I'll go for a walk. I'll do yoga. I'll call a friend. I'll take a snack. I will do something to motivate me for the next time. So motivation is all about energy, and it's not just around keeping motivated for a job or keeping motivated for a specific goal. There's a daily motivational approach in taking your days in your life from a day-to-day win versus a big goal win. Those little kind of mini hacks, somebody called them micro wins. I learned this last week. Micro wins of your day will keep you motivated and keep your energy levels going throughout your journey of that big goal that you're achieving. So self-motivation is even more important. Books on motivation are good, but some people don't like to read. So you find your own hacks. Are you motivated by music? Does it inspire? Then spend 5 minutes and listen to your favorite song and dance it out. So find yourself, your happy places, your happy hacks where you will be able to introduce that motivation, re-inspire yourself, if you will, through the energy levels that you have. That's really important to get to know that about yourself, because then you don't feel like a failure. You'll see other people like, oh my gosh, she's so motivated, I'm not. Or you're comparing yourself. No. You are yourself. So keep that to yourself. Learn yourself. That's really important. Learn yourself to the point of you being able to be the best of yourself, not the best of somebody else.
I think one of the most important things I've learned is that I need to learn myself. Thank you, Miri. That was very helpful. The next thing we have here is from Soumya Srivastava. We have, in the growing world, personality is not everything that a person needs. How can we do our branding? How can we be a part of big MNCs? How can we be more employable?
Yeah, actually, personality. It's one of its attributes, right? Personality is attributes that you've been given from a core personality perspective, or you've learned. So there's a little bit of that of learned behaviors to your personality. So you will find people that are typically an introvert making themselves extroverts for a particular role that they want. I've found, funny enough, a lot of speakers that are public speakers that I know that are influencers. They're actually very introverted, which is really funny because you would not think that when you see them. So there's this idea, again, the hack around personality is you molding yourself to where you want to show up. So if you're thinking about an entity in work, if you're focused on a company like Microsoft, for example, you learn the company as an entity. You learn the company's values, what they stand for, the voice of the company, the brand. You look at it from that perspective and you say, how would I befriend that brand, right? What does it take for me to tune into that wave of Microsoft as an entity? And how do you build those attributes? We become friends with people that we relate to, clearly. So what are the things that I can relate to and I can show up as, to be able to build and mold those personality attributes that connects with Microsoft. So we're very highly tech. We talk a little, we kind of geek out over things. We love Star Wars, that kind of thing. So maybe you want to get into those things to be able to relate to the brand, to the people of the brand. So again, it's an attribute building. It's an intentional approach to not only the personality, its behaviors, its core values, is who you align with and how you align with those companies that will build you into the culture that will, a lot of people, we're looking at culture values, right? So we're saying, hey, does that person fit into the culture? Actually, that is a thing when we hire in general. And so you have to think, okay, do I fit in? So not only are my hard skill sets good and my core personality values good, are they aligning, is the question, with the core values and the culture of this brand?
Right. Thank you again. Thank you, Mahima. Next we have, thank you, Soumya. Next we have a question from Mahima. She asks, how can we get determination and focus towards success and hard work?
Yeah, so first of all, hard work is not something you gain. It's something you decide. It's a choice. Hard work is, for us, actually, personally, for me, it's one of our family core values. We have family fives in my family. I have a family of 2 boys, my husband and I, and we created our core values. So I recommend you do the same. Our 5 values, I'll share them with you. It's God first, which means that we believe in God, and we actually worship God, and that to us is really important. Our relationship with God is important. God first, love God. Family first, which means that we're going to value before anyone, friends, extended families, our core unit, who we are for each other. We're providing each other for each other. We're supporting each other. We're protecting each other beyond anybody in the world, beyond any job in the world. In fact, I don't take jobs if they don't align with my core values or my family's core values, or if they don't want me to move somewhere or go somewhere. We are as a family unit, family first. We decide our lives together. So it's love God, family first, be generous. So we are, as a family, a generous family. We give to our community. We give to as much as we can. All of us serve our community in a certain way. Work hard. So hard work is a choice. Some of us sometimes don't want to work hard. Some of us want to be, lazy and be couch potatoes and watch Netflix all day. But no, it's a core value. So we decide before we do anything else and recreate our minds, working hard is important. And always tell the truth, which is probably the hardest one for us. Always tell the truth is like a treat, that cookie, anything from, truly just living a life that is authentic. And so for you, I recommend, for everyone really, I recommend that when you think about working hard and those enablements, they are actual hacks to who you become. Those are things that become habits and later become part of who you are. So I am a hard worker because I made that a core value for my life, not because I just wake up and like, oh, let me just work hard. No, it's like I have to decide, hey, today it is my value. I live by this value. So whether I feel like it or not, I'm going to finish that project. I'm going to wake up at 5 in the morning. When I had to write my book, I had to wake up at 3:30 every morning and write for 3 hours before I went to work. And then after 3 hours after I went to work, and I wrote for 12 hours for every weekend. And it was extremely, extremely, extremely exhausting. I can't even tell you. I probably burned out at the end. I think I probably did, but it was my determination. And what it means is when I live by that core value, I don't drop off. I don't just say, oh, I'm going to start this, and then 2 weeks later I just drop it. No, it's not a habit. It's now part of my life. It's a lifestyle. So make that if you want to work hard, if that's one of the things that you value, education, one of the things that you value, make that your lifestyle, not just a thing, not just a motivational, jargon to be able to start something and then not finish it.
That was wonderful to hear. I think we all can take a note of these and do something similar. Thank you, Mahima. The next question we have is from Divya Maheshwari. She asks how to cope with negative people and negativity around us.
Oh, yeah. Always this question. I actually posted something about this on my Instagram yesterday. Haters, haters, haters. They exist. They will not go away. Sometimes they increase in numbers and they conspire against you all day long. They exist. Here's how you do that. The first thing is I talked about having a target audience. When you have a target audience, you don't have to care about anybody else, because your audience is who you're going to target, and that is it. Anybody else after that doesn't matter. So you have to also learn yourself and your levels of energy. Be like, do I need to employ this much energy on this? The answer is typically no. Give you an example. When I started posting things on Instagram that were for my girls, I got a whole lot of people, and there were engineers, actually male engineers, who came at me and sent me notes on emails, inbox, also through LinkedIn, on Teams, actually on the actual post, saying things like, this is not Facebook. Why are you putting this out there? This is not, why do you feel like this should be on LinkedIn? This is not professional. Everybody came at me. And I was like, at first I was like, whoa, right? And then I was like, wait a minute. I don't care that they don't like it. First of all, this is not for them. I'm not targeting them. So I went and deleted everything. I want to block a whole lot of people. And then I talked about it. I was like, if the content doesn't appeal to you, it's because it's not for you, period. So this is why having a target audience is very important, because you are able to empower yourself to deal with this negative people, right? There's going to be always going to be that's never going to go away. There's mean people everywhere, and mean people suck. But if you stay focused on your target and your mission, you will find, and I'll tell you this from experience, and this is the reason I'm here talking to you, is because when you inspire your cohort, the people that you targeted, they receive it. They receive it with love. They actually give you love back, and they say, hey, Miri, thank you for putting that out there. I felt it. I was inspired by it. And so I live for that. I focus on that. The rest, the delete button, the block button are beautiful buttons to use, and I use them all the time. I have no problem blocking people that don't need to be in my life, bringing negativity. I already have a whole lot of stuff happening to have even more people. So block them, delete them. It's your channel. It's your content. You get to do whatever you want. So use them.
I think that was something we really, really needed to hear. social media can be a huge influence on us these days.
Oh yeah, and half the time those people are just, first of all, people that don't do anything. All they do is just hate on others, and it's like, what are you doing for your life? How are you hacking life? Why are you not like? Why do I even care your opinion? Like, you're nobody in my life. You're nobody. So delete and block.
That's right. Thank you, Divya, for your question. Next, we have from Saksham, who asks, what one piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Yes. I would say keep going. There are times that I felt like I couldn't, many times. And if I would have stopped, I would have regretted not keep going. I think one of the things that for me, again, as a core value, working hard, it also means resiliency. Times that you're going to feel like, why am I doing this? You may feel inspired right after, be like, oh, this is great. I had this inspired talk, and I'm going to go do this. And then it gets really hard. And then you're like, you give up. You know, don't give up. It is something that is a journey, and actually have fun in the journey, even through those slumps, even through those moments where you're just like, this sucks, this is heavy, I can't. You can, and you should. So don't give up. I would tell myself that all the time. The things that I do regret are the things that I did not do, or that I stopped doing because I thought I wasn't good enough, or I couldn't finish it, or whatever. I should have, and that's never a good thing. Like, I should have done that. No, I tried it and I failed, but at least I tried it, right? Failure makes you a doer, failing makes you a doer, not a failure. So try everything, say yes to everything, seize opportunities, and you will never have that what if. I have a couple of what ifs in my life, and I'm like, I should have done that. So don't stop and say yes.
Again, that was much needed, Miri. Thank you.
Of course.
Next, we have Abhinay, who asks, how can one turn his or her passions into work?
Yeah, so passion is a combination of things, right? It's things that we're good at, it's things that we're naturally talented with, endowed with, and we have learned that it sets our soul on fire. And so it's like, hey, Miri, I love to play basketball. How do I bring that to work? Well, a couple ways. You can actually leverage everything that you love if you've already found it. Actually, learning yourself will help you find that. By the way, when I did the exercise of my life story, I found, and I had forgotten, that I used to write poetry books when I was around 7 years old. So I did that exercise in my timeline, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had forgotten that I used to write poetry books, which means I was a writer. I just didn't know it. And so I ended up writing a book, not knowing that I was already a writer. I had put on 10,000 hours in my writing skill set. So your life story will help you uncover, if you don't have them yet, passions. The things that you did when you were a little girl, a little boy, and things that you just naturally built or created, or you were really good at and you enjoy doing a whole lot. Those are indicators of things that you like to do, that it gives you a feeling of like talent and passion and things that you're excited about. So those are indicators, and use those to kind of tell you what your passions is if you don't know them. How you bring them to work is by creating avenues. What you do is, if you like basketball, it has nothing to do with tech or coding, you can create a basketball club. You can teach basketball to younger kids. You can use the basketball anecdotes and say, hey, in the court, you learn to do this and this and that to be able to work as a team player. Here's how you create a talk around basketball and tech. So basically, you begin to marry these different things that we don't think we can, and you can, because you can do whatever you want. You can start marrying them and using those stories, back to the storylines, to actually build content, build talks, build a blog, build a video around basketball, which you love and you're excited about, in tech. How basketball looks like tech, how coding is like basketball. I don't know, but it really is this idea that you would never think sports and tech would actually marry, and they can. You can. So don't think it's one track. There's so many ways that you can actually bring in the things that you're excited about. I was passionate, always about talking to girls, and so I started to do that first at Microsoft, again with a couple of them. Then I got into mentorship, and so it just became a thing, and now I do it, and it's part of my job, which is insane, because I lead the internship program. So I talk to students now, because as part of my job I get paid to do that, which is insane. So it becomes that because you build it, and again, don't let society or work define one aspect of you. There's so many aspects of you. Bring them in, talk about it. It's your humanity.
Thank you, Miri. That was really, really nice to hear. We actually have a couple of more questions. This is going to take a little more of your time.
That's
Next,
okay. Go ahead.
next we have Saksham Raghuvanshi, who asks, in this quarantine, what one skill would you like to improve or develop? And what is your plan for doing so?
Yes, my plan is actually to code. I have not ever coded before, even though I've been in tech for almost over 8 years. And I came into the marketing discipline, to the communications and social media discipline. So I'm not by trade a coder, but I love it. I fell in love with coding when I began to do some stories around AI, and I was fascinated by the heart of this technology and just what it can do for the world. And so my 2020 thing is actually to code. I did promise one of my mentors I would. So I am hoping, honestly, I haven't had the time, but it's been actually busier. But I'm hoping that I can take some time and do. I started on Python, so I started on Python, and so I really wanna do it for fun, and that's it. I think one of the ideas around this, this enclosement, this lockdown, is that we get to do some things that we didn't get to do before because life is so busy. So, again, pivot yourself, learn opportunities. What you do at this time right now will absolutely be the thing that you'll be able to, pivot yourself, learn a new thing, master something new. It'll be really good time to look back and go, wow, while I was, I became a producer, not a consumer. I didn't sit there and watch TV all day. I actually produced something while I was on lockdown.
I'm so sure we all have started so many things given we have so much time, but let's see how much of it we actually complete. Anyway,
That's right.
Next we have Avinash, who asks, how do you network with new people when you know they can help you grow professionally?
Yes, that's a great question. You just do. So here's a couple hacks with people that you want to reach out that are typically super busy or have a big title and you're like, you don't know how to approach them. One of the things from my experience that I've done both, right? So I've approached people and I've also gotten approached. So one of the things I appreciate from being approached is a couple things. Don't just come out and say, hey, help me do this, right? It feels that I'm being used. And I don't want to feel like I'm being used. So don't come out and just be like, hey, can you help me get into Microsoft? Well, a lot of people want to get into Microsoft. How do you pretend I help you? So really approach it from you telling your story and wanting to learn different things beyond just getting into Microsoft, for example. So I've gotten some people that say, hey, Miri, can I steal 15 minutes of your time? I could probably do 15, not 30, but a 15-minute one-time mentorship. Wow, this is great. And it happens from my experience that I actually stay longer than 15 minutes because I've had a really good conversation and I enjoy the moment. So get in with a small ask that doesn't take up a whole hour, a half hour, but you really just, show interest in just saying that one thing. When I've gotten rejected myself, when I've asked for mentorship and somebody says, sorry, I'm too busy, then I respond, I'm like, okay, no is the beginning of negotiations. So I really want to get a mentorship. So I go back and I say, okay, I understand you're super busy. How about we stay in touch and I can just ask you a question related to a topic that you're really good at. And just you can answer whenever you want. And most people will probably say yes to that. And that has actually led to a relationship with people who actually become my mentors later on. So it is really about being careful in your relationship building and not coming across as self-serving all the time and just what you can do for me. Paying it forward is also really important. So if you say, hey, to someone that you want to connect with and say, hey, I really just want to learn a couple of things from you. If I can bug you for 10 minutes to help me answer this question. If you do that, I would love to pay it forward and share this online with somebody, share my learnings. That's always often something that it seems positive because you're not just serving yourself, you're serving more people. So it's really important. Again, your approach is very important, but you do just need to approach, you need to ask, and how you show up in that digital presence, because typically this is done through digital channels, is also important. If you don't have a profile picture, if you only say you're from India, I don't know who you are. So I'll probably think you're spamming me, right? So again, show up, have a very strong digital presence, and then introduce yourself, say, hi, I just want to talk for 2 seconds, or here's what I can do. Right now, what I'm doing is actually I'm leveraging my book, and I'm talking to people about it. So talking to people I never talked to, right, on the media and different things, so I can pitch my book. And so what can I offer them is really important. I've been saying, hey, I want to offer a webinar, I want to offer a one-on-one. Those are things that I come off and I offer first before actually asking them something. That's really important.
I think this was very helpful. We must take a note of these points. Thank you, Miri.
You're
Next,
welcome.
we have Simran Kaul, and she asks, how can we attain maximum emotional stability while keeping both our professional and personal lives balanced?
The life-work balance question. Listen, that's a lie. There is no work-life balance. It doesn't exist. There's life chaos, there's work chaos, and often they meet, and often emotions drive the whole thing as well. So here's how you don't balance because you won't. What you do is you embrace it. Life is chaotic, and we have to embrace it. I have had moments where I have to stop working. When I've been in the office, I have to get up and I have to go to the bathroom and I have to cry it out for an hour and call my mom and cry and then compose myself and get back to work. I've had those moments. I've had moments where I had to take my laptop and leave and not come back for the day and take a mental health break. I've had those moments. It's important to not force yourself to show up and say, Miri from work is always cool and collected and that's it. No, I'm not. I have bad days. And when I have bad days, I recognize them. I embrace them. That's part of being human. That's part of knowing yourself and saying, you know what? I'm not doing well. I know this is going to sound crass, but I'm going to talk to women specifically because I've actually done this too. We're live. I recognize it. We have a cycle. We have an emotional and an hormonal cycle, and those hormones apply. They're real. They give us headaches. They make us bloated. They make us want to stay home. They make us eat salty and sweet foods, and they wreck us emotionally. I've had to call my boss and be like, listen, I'm in my cycle right now. You don't want me talking to customers. I'm not doing well right now. So let's talk next week, right? It's a biological thing. I didn't create that. It just happens. So recognizing, again, learning yourself will help you navigate and embrace life as it comes. You don't have to show up all polished. Nobody is. We're moving away from that idea as well, by the way. Being collected and in control is one thing. Being collected and in control means that you are knowing and embracing your moments and staying strong through it. It doesn't mean that you don't get emotional. It doesn't mean that you don't lose it. You do, and it's okay. When you embrace it, you look at your emotions, you analyze them and say, okay, where do I go from here? And then you move forward. So embracing, not balancing, it's really important to recognize and knowing yourself. Again, I know it sounds crazy. When you begin to do that, you empower yourself. You empower yourself to say, hey, today I just can't go to work. I don't feel well. That's okay. That's a thing. I can't go to school. That's okay. That's a thing. And the more you do that, the more you allow yourself the mental health, because you are prioritizing who you are. You're loving yourself first before you love anybody else. And that's really, really important.
Again, much needed. It's so difficult to realize that you're not okay and still keep telling yourself that you need to be okay.
Yeah, and have a tribe of people. I have sisters, right? I have people that I can really just call at any moment, and I could just curse the world and have a meltdown like a 2-year-old, go on the floor and scream, and then I'm like, okay, feel better, energy's done. I can go back to work, right? So people that don't judge me, have a tribe of people that you know will not judge you, love you, want to see you succeed. Those are the people, and let me tell you, everybody has those. We all have those people that we call when we're losing it. We're like, okay, I let off steam, and when my friends do the same thing with me, they'll call me like, I need to talk right now. And when they call me, I stop everything. And they call me, they have the meltdown. Okay, you're good. You're good. All right, get back to work. I love you. Bye. So have those people, have those things, have those places and those moments that you can go to, let off steam and get back.
That's right. Thank you again. Thank you, Simran, for the question. Next, we have Cynthia, who asks, what activities or tool helped you to know your target audience?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, activities will include anything that you have been passionate about in the past. So again, your storyline will help you define that. You'll find, for example, that you were in tune to maybe music. And so activities around music, if you say, oh, target audience, people who love music like me, people who don't know how to use music to tell their stories, or people who, I don't know. So anything related to music, artists or creatives. Those data points, again, kind of, they begin to indicate things that you are in tune with, and then you can take those data points and say, maybe I want to pivot that to an audience that I want to appeal to. For me, I always taught. It was something that just I played teacher. I like teaching. I never decided to be a teacher because it didn't pay well, which is a sad thing to say, but I was just like, I can't be a teacher. But I love to teach. So if you notice right now, I'm actually teaching, not in a classroom setting, but I'm teaching something, right? I'm teaching insights. And so I'm teaching from my own experience. So I became a teacher, if you will, and not in the way that I thought it would, but I basically began to live my passion because I targeted an audience. My audience was earlier in career. So I had a little bit more, I was old enough to know a little bit more than them to be able to offer wisdom, but young enough that I wasn't not relatable. So that enabled me. A moment in time, I was like, wow, I went through something. What did I learn and what can I talk about? So those moments in those data points will also tell you something adverse or transformative. Those are great indicators for you to target an audience and say, wow, somebody also probably went through this. I've had women who've done this exercise, for example, and they learned that they hadn't gone there in their mind, but they were abused by their boyfriends. And so they wanted to talk, the target audience became people that were domestic violence big victims because of this exercise. So you begin to think back of those things that have happened to you, intentional or unintentional, and those moments really elevate ideas around who you can target with your own story because you've lived it. So you're relatable to them.
Right, Miri, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Of course.
We'll address one last question for the session today.
Sure.
This is a question I think most of us out there want to ask. Here it goes. What quality do you think those communities women leaders should have?
It's a great question. Wow. I think the quality of authenticity is the most important one as a community leader, as a woman. And what does that mean to you? What does authentic mean to you? It is really important that as we get out there with our stories, we don't lose track of why we're doing what we're doing, especially women. Men have branded themselves for a long time. They have positioned themselves in the community for a long time. They have help. They get hired help to tell them how to dress and how to talk and how to tell stories. In fact, my book is about democratizing that because they've been taught. We don't get that often. We are often still asked to be part of a society that requests us to be domestic when we have children and we choose to. Changes who we are in our mission in life. It literally changes. When I became a mom, I was like, oh wow, being a mom is completely, it changed my life because I live for kids. Now I need to, now I have 2 little people that depend on me forever. As a mom is much different. So the authenticity factor is important in not losing. That's why legacy is important, not losing your legacy and what you stand up for. Because we can get really caught up real quick on the social side, on the influencer side, if you begin to have a voice on your why, losing your why. And I've seen women cross that threshold. It's really sad for me because it becomes a political thing. It becomes, they lose their voice, or even worse, they change their voice because they feel like they have to stay relevant in a world that is often male dominated. And so I myself found myself in places where I was just like, whoa, I don't even sound like myself anymore. I began to sound different because of my surroundings. I was like, wait a minute, that's not me, right? That's not who I am. And I had to get back to my why. I had to get back to my mission statement. So that statement is really important for you to get back to why you are doing what you're doing and the essence of who you are. Authenticity truly is about defining those core values I talked about and living by this, sticking by them and nothing else. Don't let anything else kind of influence that. You created that for yourself. That's what you're going to go do and set for the world. So as a woman, being authentic to yourself first and then to others is extremely important. You're going to go do a whole lot of things. You're going to have a lot of different jobs, and none of them define you. And even losing a job doesn't define you. Or even, my son turned 18 yesterday, and I was like, oh my gosh, my duty as a mom is ending. So it's a weird thing, but it's not that it's ending. I'm never not going to be a mom. It's just the journey changed, or we crossed a threshold. And so that's what life is about, journeys and exploring what it means for you and how it molds who you are by keeping the same theme. If I asked myself 7 years ago, do I still, when I set out to make people belong, make people like they are here and they should be here, am I doing the same thing 7 years later? The answer is yes. Have I gone through a whole lot of crap in those 7 years? Yes. Have I changed myself? Yes. But my theme is still the same. That makes me authentic.
That was absolutely great to hear, Miri. I feel so inspired, and I'm pretty sure people out there listening to you feel the same. That
Thank
was the last question we answered. We had a couple of more, but we we will probably do it next time, and I'm hoping the next time will be soon. And
Yes, thank
I
you.
can't thank you enough, Miri, for joining us, for giving us your time, for answering so many questions we bombarded. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, and I truly hope you connect with me as well on social media at Miri Rod, on LinkedIn, Miri Rodriguez. If you have a question that wasn't answered, I'd love to answer it when I have a chance. This is why I exist. It's my why. You are my why. So I will absolutely be passionate about connecting with you and helping you individually as much as I can. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Miri. With that, we come to an end. Thank you, everyone who joined us here today.
Thank you.
And we have Mrityunjay or Enam who want to take over, please.
And we really hope that she will help us and everyone around the world in empowering the women in tech and inspiring us all. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much.